Hello, this is Winker Reviews, and today I'll be doing a video on The Wretched, about a teenage boy who is struggling with his parents' divorce, who has to face off with an old witch that has possessed his next door neighbor. This genuinely freaked me out. I was very surprised at the visuals in the first 30 minutes. The visuals, the practical effects, the gore, you could tell, or I could tell while watching this, that the people behind this have a real love for filmmaking. I won't spoil anything, but there was one scene, like the first scene that actually freaked me out was a scene involving a little boy and his mother walking in the woods. They were going on a hike, going on exploring, and there was one moment where the little boy is by himself in the woods and then he suddenly hears his mom calling after him, but he knew that something wasn't right about the voice that was calling after him, and it really sent chills down my spine. And it made me think back to when I was a little kid and I was paranoid about certain things, especially when I was alone or after watching a scary movie. So that scene in particular really took me back to childhood. And again, I won't spoil anything, but there was some really good gory effects. And seeing that so early on in the movie, I was really like pumped up for this movie super early on. I was so excited to watch this. I was like, oh my god, finally a refreshing horror movie. Because most horror movies suck, if I'm completely honest. They suck so bad that it's not even my favorite genre anymore. So again, the first 38 minutes were so promising. It's super creepy, super on the edge of your seat, and you wonder what's gonna happen next. Everything's a big mystery at this point. And then it takes a nosedive. And slowly as the movie goes on, I get a little more disappointed. The first thing that struck a nerve with me was one particular scene involving a mother, a woman who has no clothing on. She's nude in her house. And the way that she's moving is the cliched crackling and crinkling of the body. If you probably know what I mean if you've ever seen The Grudge or the Conjuring series or the Insidious movies, that tired old crickling and crinkling of the body and the snips and the snaps and the sound effects. And it's so tired and so played out. Like all these supernatural movies keep ripping off The Grudge from 2004, and I'm so sick of it. Another thing that happens in this particular scene is the way that the woman is standing. She's standing in the exact same way as the creature from the movie Lights Out from 2016. And so that was a huge red flag for me. The fact that it was literally ripping off two different movies in one shot. And like I said before, the first 40 minutes were very promising, and then the tone started to change. Like it went from super creepy and eerie and very creative with the way that everything was being directed. And then it switches over into kind of cheesy, and it sort of feels like a Goosebumps movie or like a Stranger Things kind of movie, like the teenagers teaming up together to solve the mystery. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, you had such a good thing going and then you dropped the ball. It literally went from Sinister 2012 to Goosebumps in the span of 2 minutes. Like, I'm not even exaggerating when I say that. It was really out of left field, and I was wondering if the movie was going to go back to the tone it was in the first half, but it never did. The more that's revealed in the plot, the less interested I am in the movie itself and the characters. I honestly didn't have any interest in the rest of the movie, and I almost turned it off, but I did leave it on for the sake of doing this review properly. And it really started to remind me of the movie Us that was produced by Jordan Peele. I didn't like that movie either, simply because I just wasn't interested in the actual plot. And I wasn't interested in the plot with this movie either. The more you learn about this creature, the supernatural witch like creature, The last 20 minutes got even more cheesy, and it's really honestly started to remind me of what I would have seen in the 80s, like in those 80s movies. It's a little cheesy, like some movies don't creep you out the way they probably did back then, which would have been fine because I do like 80s movies of all genres, but it didn't have the same tone as the first half of the movie. Like it was a completely different tone. It went from modern day scary to 80s cheesy. But I do give it points for using practical effects and not relying on CGI. And like I said before, you can really tell that the people behind the scenes are very talented and they really love what they do, and I really do respect that. Overall, I just wish the movie was more original because it had all the ingredients to be a standout, but instead it chose to rip off elements of other movies while having a subpar antagonist, which is really disappointing because the design of the monster itself is really creepy at the beginning. And it just really sucks because the visuals are great. The creature at the beginning had me on the edge of my seat. Instead, we get a Stranger Things vibe involving a tree and being underground. And I didn't like that show either. This was basically a compilation of different shows and movies that I don't like. And for that, I have to give it a 3 out of 10. It did have good acting and nice bits of gore, but it was a little confusing at times and a little convoluted. It's almost like they had all these different ideas and they couldn't choose which direction to go in, so they decided to add elements of all these different ideas and mush them into this one movie. And I think if they would have just kept the plot a little simple, I would have liked it. And going back to the movies that this movie rips off, and I know I keep repeating myself when I say this, but they dead ass ripped off the monster design from The Other Side of the Door. And that movie sucked. Like they shot for shot ripped off the design for the end of the movie when you see the monster in its full glory. And I was in complete shock because I had a hard time remembering where I saw this creature from, and it took me a good maybe hour to figure out that they ripped off this movie from The Other Side of the Door, which is a little laughable. I don't know. Like again, the people behind the scenes, like they seem talented, but they keep ripping off elements of other movies, and it's actually very annoying. It's very disappointing. And again, I give it a 3 out of 10. You can check it out yourself and see if you like it. You may or may not like it. But yeah, thanks for watching.